One drunk kiss woke an ancient alien queen. Now, he's her chosen mate and our last hope against extinction. Travis McCoy wondered if rock bottom had a basement as he gazed down at the bottom of his empty synth whiskey glass. He could still remember Melissa's leaving remarks. "You're 32, Travis. When are you going to grow up and get a real job instead of playing with alien junk?" The amber liquid had burned as it went down, but not nearly as much as that. As if dealing in antiques wasn't a legitimate job, as if it didn't take years of research and a very sharp eye to distinguish authentic Zephyrian death masks from fake tourist souvenirs. Try explaining that, though, to someone who believed that anything beyond the celebration from last week was archaic. Zone 9's underground auction house was bustling with its typical mix of dubious customers and desperate sellers. Across soiled walls, neon ads in 17 different languages flashed, promising everything from rare centaur silk that was only mildly radioactive to genuine Martian crystals. The air smelled of cheap cologne, ozone, and the special desperation that held on to those who worked in the grey marketplaces of the galaxy. The bartender, a four-armed Galaxian with more scars than flesh, pointed with one of his extra appendages to Travis's glass and said, "Another round." Travis pushed the glass forward, asking, "Why the hell not? It's not like I have anywhere else to be." After accepting the refill, Travis took a sip that brought tears to his eyes and asked, "Rough day in the artifact business. Rough life in the human business. You know what they say about us humans in the Federation. We're the comic relief. The species everyone pats on the head and calls cute when we try to act like grown-ups." From next to him, a metallic voice chimed, "Perhaps, if you stopped drowning your sorrows in synthetic alcohol and actually focused on your work, you might find more success." Travis ignored his paperwork robot, Ginger 47, which was the closest thing he had to a business partner. The neon from the bar was reflected in sickening swirls of color on the chrome chassis of the machine. "Thanks for the pep talk, Ginger. Really. Feeling the support here. I am programmed to provide accurate assessments, not emotional support. Though I should note that your current blood alcohol level is approaching legally questionable territory." "Legally questionable is my middle name." "No, your middle name is Eugene. I have your birth certificate on file." At last, Travis turned to give the droid a fierce look. "Has anyone ever told you that you're a real ray of sunshine?" As Ginger's optical sensors focused on something across the auction floor, they whirred and said, frequently, "I have recorded 17 similar complaints this month alone. Speaking of your work, the auction is beginning. Lot 47 appears to be generating some interest." A crowd had collected around the auction block, and Travis followed the droid's gaze, wheezing into his voice amplifier. "Hearken the Hutton, unfortunate case of parallel evolution, with no connection to the notorious crime family pointed to the offerings for tonight." For a minute, Travis's professional interest overcame his self-pity too. "Inquire, what have we got?" "Various items of questionable provenance and dubious value. However, there is one piece that might interest you." Squinting through the crowd, Travis saw something that caused him to stiffen on his bar stool. A towering, graceful statue made of what appeared to be purple stone. He could see something that may be calligraphy along the base and fine features in the construction even. From this distance, he drank his drink and stood up, swaying only a little. Well, he said. "Let's go see what we have here." Harkin was only introducing the piece as they pushed through the crowd. "Lot 63, folks. Decorative statue from the Zarati sector. Previous owner claims it's some kind of religious artifact. But between you and me, it looks like fancy garden decoration. We'll start the bidding at 50 credits. Travis suppressed a chuckle. Adorning a garden, the auctioneer was unable to recognize authentic xenoarchaeological relics, much less read a grocery list in standard Galactic. Travis, however, could, and his heart raced at what he saw. The statue was about 6 feet tall and was carved with a level of precision that spoke of master craftsmanship, even if he was intoxicated. With features that indicated both beauty and danger, it showed a humanoid female form with unmistakably non-human proportions, too tall, too perfect. Travis's breath caught, though, when he saw the ancient Imperial Zerati lettering engraved into the base. Before things became complicated, he had seen examples in university texts when he was earning his degree in xenoarchaeology. The majority of imperial relics had been destroyed when the Zerati Empire fell 1,000 years earlier. Therefore, the script was extremely rare. "Do I hear 50?" wheezed Harkin. The crowd made a few hesitant bids, but Travis could see that no one else was aware of what they were seeing. It was just another work of alien art, beautiful but useless in their eyes. 100, Travis said, his voice piercing the background chatter. Harkin turned his enormous head in his direction. 100 from the human. "Do I hear 150? Not a word. Travis stifled a smile. The other bidders had already given up, presumably thinking that if a human was prepared to spend so much, the piece must be flawed. Going once, going twice, sold to the human for 100 credits, with what may have been disdain emanating from his optical sensors. Travis walked to the payment station while Ginger floated next to him. The droid said, 100 credits for a decorative statue. Your financial management skills continue to astound me. Trust me on this one, Ginger. That's not just any statue. While two of Harkin's helpers carefully loaded his purchase onto a repulsor cart, Travis moved the credits. That script on the base, it's Imperial Zeratai. Do you know what genuine Imperial artifacts go for on the collector's market? Between 5 and 50,000 credits, depending on historical significance and condition. That's right, and I just acquired something that might be a religious idol for pennies. With a flourish, Travis signed the transfer documents. And sometimes it pays to be the only person in the room who actually studied xenoarchaeology. They wheeled the statue to a quiet corner of the auction house so Travis could study it properly up close. And it was even more impressive. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Every curve and line had been carved with mathematical precision, creating an image of alien femininity that was both beautiful and somehow unsettling. But what really caught Travis's attention was the script. As he ran his fingers over the carved symbols, trying to recall his university lessons. Imperial Zerati being a complex language, with multiple layers of meaning depending on context and ceremonial significance. Are you able to translate it? Ginger asked, his sensors focusing on the inscription. Travis squinted at the symbols, the alcohol making the letters swim slightly. Let's look. He traced the last line of lettering. This is interesting. This symbol means throne or seat of power. This one is empty or vacant. And this, ... Depending on the situation, the Imperial Zerati root symbol for key and kiss is the same. What does it say, then? The throne is vacant, as far as I can determine. The secret is a kiss. If this is what I believe it to be, we may be looking at something from the Imperial Court itself, possibly even something related to the last Emperor, Travis said, leaning back and whistling quietly. Amazing. Travis waved him away, saying, I'm fine, but I should point out that your current state of intoxication may somewhat impair your translation skills. It's better than fine. I'm having a party. He looked around the auction house, noting the small crowd of stragglers still nursing drinks at the bar. You know what? This, I believe, merits a toast. To what precisely is a toast made? Did Ginger ask, to discovering something incredible among a heap of trash, to demonstrating that, even when everyone else considers you to be just another stupid person, there are instances when it pays to be the smartest person in the room. And two beautiful women, even if they're made of stone, Travis said, lifting his empty glass in the direction of the statue. Travis felt the familiar flutter of being the focus of attention, dangerous territory when he'd been drinking. But today he didn't care. The bar patrons had noticed his antics and were beginning to huddle around, lured by the promise of entertainment. His voice reverberated throughout the auction house as he declared, "Ladies, gentlemen, and various other life forms, I present to you a genuine piece of Zerati imperial art, carved by master craftsmen more than 1,000 years ago. The collapse of civilizations has not destroyed this beauty." Some gave mocking applause, and someone exclaimed, "Human, what is it intended to do?" Travis smiled and pointed to the message, saying, "This means you just need to kiss it. The throne is vacant. The secret is a kiss. It might fulfill wishes. It might awaken and start dancing. Hell, it might become a genuine woman." The crowd laughed. But Travis was getting into his subject. Everything seemed more dramatic and humorous because of the drink. He approached the statue and studied the chiseled face, which the artist had depicted as if it were alive, with eyes that seemed to carry secrets and lips curving in the faintest of smiles. Travis said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet auction house, "Why not? Let's see what happens when I kiss Sleeping Beauty here. Hey, Travis. I strongly advise against Ginger," said in a tone that could have been alarming. "People, take note. Perhaps I'll awaken Sleeping Beauty here," Travis said, leaning forward with one hand resting against the statue's shoulder. The stone felt warm beneath his palm, which ought to have been his first clue. He pressed his lips to the carved mouth, expecting to taste cold stone and ancient dust. But instead he felt warmth and softness, and then the world burst into purple light. The light seemed to come from everywhere at once, pulsing with a rhythm that was almost like a heartbeat. And he heard the characteristic crack of stone breaking but not breaking, shedding like an eggshell, falling away from something ready to hatch. Travis stumbled backward as the auction house erupted in shouts of alarm. Travis's world tilted sideways, and he forced his eyes open, squinting through the fading light, and there was a woman, if woman was the right word for something so obviously not human in its place. She was tall, almost 6 feet, with skin the color of deep amethyst that seemed to glow with its own inner light, silver hair cascading down her back like liquid metal, and when she opened her eyes, they blazed with golden fire. Travis's brain, already struggling with alcohol and shock, just stopped functioning, and he stood there with his mouth hanging open as the most beautiful creature he had ever seen, stretched like a cat waking from a long nap. Every movement was the epitome of grace, with muscles flowing beneath luminescent skin with predatory elegance. When the woman creature, alien, finished stretching, she turned to face Travis, her lips curving into a smile that made his knees go weak and his survival instincts scream warnings he was too stunned to heed. The auction house had gone completely silent. Even the usual background hum of electronics seemed muted, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. "All right." Her voice was rich contralto with an accent he couldn't place, speaking perfect. Standard Galactic. You want to be my mate? Travis just stood there, his mouth moving silently, until Ginger's voice broke through his shock. The auction house exploded back into chaos, with half of the crowd screaming and running for the exits, while the other half pulled out recording devices in an attempt to capture what was either the best hoax in galactic history or the discovery of the century. I think you could have erred in judgment, Travis. Not joking. The woman stepped forward, and Travis noticed that she moved like a predator, all coiled power and barely contained violence. Despite her nudity, or perhaps because of it, she exuded a dangerous authority that made everyone in the room back off, except Travis, who seemed to have forgotten how his legs worked. Travis managed to say this, his voice cracking. With her golden eyes fixated on Travis once again, she declared, I am Shariah of the House of Starfire, her voice resonating easily over the tumult, Imperial Guardian of the Zarathi throne. And you, little human, have just bound yourself to me by the ancient laws of my people. Stuck? What do you mean, bound? Travis said, although his voice sounded more like a squeak. Congratulations, you are now my chosen mate and the key to awakening the star crystal, Shariah said, her smile turning predatory. Under Imperial law, the freely given awakening kiss constitutes a mating contract. Now what? 3 of the larger customers of the auction house decided to try their luck before Shariah could respond, rushing her from various directions, presumably thinking that being nude meant she was helpless. They were utterly mistaken. When the 3rd attacker saw what had happened to his friends, he actually had the intelligence to slow down, but Shariah was already in motion, flowing across the space between them with unnatural speed, her hand closing around the man's throat, lifting him off the ground one-handed and holding him at eye level. The first attacker was flung across the room before he had taken 2 steps. The second got within arm's reach before a casual backhand sent him spinning into a stack of auction crates, as if she weren't casually displaying her superhuman power. She continued conversationally, I have been asleep for 1,000 years, during which time she had dreams about blood in battle and my enemy's screams. Don't force me to begin with you. The rest of the audience took the cue and gave her a considerably wider distance once she let go of him, and he fell in a gasping heap. Travis observed this performance with a mix of interest and fear. You're strong, he whispered feebly. Okay, he said. I understand. However, about the entire mating contract issue. Travis noticed what had drawn Shariah's attention, the characteristic whine of Federation. Security vehicles when her head swung toward the auction house door. Later, mate, it appears that the authorities have already learned of my awakening. Travis, this night is getting better and better. Come on. A group of Federation security forces, clad in full battle armor and armed with weapons capable of reducing a person to component atoms, flooded in as the doors of the auction house exploded. Their captain, a grim-faced human woman with lieutenants. Bars swept the room with professional competence. Security of the Federation. Now everyone is on the ground. The majority of the remaining audience instantly obeyed. Travis began to raise his hands, but Shariah grabbed him by the wrist. No. She answered plainly, no. Lady, those are Federation troops with really big guns, Travis said, staring at her. Perhaps we ought to. I don't kowtow to anyone. Still beautifully nude and seemingly indifferent to the dozen weapons now aimed at her, Shariah walked forward and declared, I am Shariah of the House of Starfire, and I will not be confined by lesser humans. Unknown alien entity, you are under arrest for disturbing the peace and destroying property, the lieutenant said in a distorted but authoritative voice that came through her helmet speaker. Put yourself in prison right away, or we'll use force. Travis felt a chill go down his spine when he heard Shariah laugh. But it wasn't a laugh of someone who thought things were hilarious. Rather, it was the laugh of someone who thought things were going to become extremely terrible for everyone else and extremely interesting for her force. How lovely, she repeated. It's been millennia since I had a real battle. Hold on a minute. With his hands up in what he hoped was a non-violent posture, Travis moved between Shariah and the security personnel, saying, perhaps we can discuss this. There must have been a miscommunication of some sort. Get out of here, citizen. This creature has the potential to be dangerous, the lieutenant ordered. Possibly. Oh, dear little humans, there's nothing potential about it, Shariah said, her smile widening to reveal teeth that appeared a little too sharp. Armor crumpled under her blows, weapons were torn from hands and crushed like toys, and bodies flew across the auction house with casual ease. Travis had watched Federation military demonstrations, seen highlights of professional combat sports, and even witnessed a few bar fights in his time, but none of it prepared him for watching Shariah fight. She moved through the security team, like water through a sieve, but water that hit with the force of a sledgehammer. In less than 30 seconds, the entire security squad was down not dead. As Travis could see, they were still breathing, but definitely out of the fight. It wasn't that she was strong, though she was clearly strong, or that she was fast, though she was faster than anything a human had a right to be. Instead, she fought with the confidence of someone who had never faced an opponent she couldn't handle, coupled with technique that spoke of centuries of training. Now, she began, turning back to Travis. Where were we? Shariah stood in the middle of the destruction, barely breathing. You were explaining about the mating contract, Ginger said kindly, and the star crystal, and why the Federation security forces just tried to arrest you. The short story is that you, my beloved partner, have just awakened the final guardian of an ancient weapon capable of changing galactic civilization. Ah yes, Shariah said, stepping over an unconscious trooper and heading toward the rear exit of the auction house. Some would kill us both in order to obtain it, while others would kill us both in order to stop its usage. What about the extended version? Travis couldn't think of a better option, so he followed her and inquired. The lengthy version must wait. We must go now. Are you coming, mate? Or would you rather explain to the Federation how you unintentionally woke up a 1,000-year-old alien warrior? Shariah hesitated at the ... He got out and turned to face him eagerly. Ginger, he remarked to his robot, I don't suppose you recorded any of this for future legal proceedings. Travis stared at the comatose security personnel at the demolished auction house, at his flipped life, and then at Shia, who was gorgeous, dangerous, and seemingly his responsibility now. Fantastic. Well, at least there will be good documentation. When they put me on trial. Travis squared his shoulders and approached Shia, saying, All right, let's go, but I want answers. Shia's smile had grown warm and even loving. Of course, mate. But first, we need transportation. To take a government vehicle, you should use the Federation security shuttle outside. I would rather call it commandeering. Besides, she reached out and took his hand, her skin warm and electric against his. It's not stealing if they can't stop us. Before Travis could protest, Shia kicked open the rear exit and strode into the alley behind the auction house. The Federation shuttle sat there like a gift, its engines still running. Wait, what about clothes? Travis asked, calling after her. You can't just go about in your undies. Ah, your human sensibilities, Shia said, pausing to glance down at herself as though she had forgotten she was undressed. Very well, she gestured, and suddenly she was clothed in what looked like form-fitting armor that matched her skin tone perfectly. Better, how did you? Never mind, I don't want to know. They reached the shuttle, where 2 more security personnel were climbing out to investigate the commotion. Shia dispatched them with casual efficiency, then gestured for Travis to board. After you, mate. Travis climbed into the shuttle, his mind reeling with everything that had happened in the last 10 minutes. Behind him, Shia settled into the pilot seat with practiced ease and began working the controls. Do you even know how to fly this thing? I am trained in the operation of all Imperial vessels, inquired Travis. The engines buzzed to life, and the shuttle lifted effortlessly from the alley. Besides, how hard can it be? Federation technology is primitive by comparison. As they rose above Neo-Singapore's skyline, Travis got his first clear look at Shia in the shuttle's lighting. She was even more striking than he'd first thought. All clean lines and elegant curves, with an otherworldly beauty that made his chest tight. But it was her eyes that held his attention, ancient eyes full of pain and loss, and a loneliness so deep it made his heart ache. So he said, settling back in his seat as the city fell away beneath him, want to tell me what I've gotten myself into? From the cockpit canopy, Shia's mirror grinned at him and said, you kissed a sleeping warrior, little human. Now you get to help her save the galaxy. Great, Travis muttered, watching the stars appear as they left Earth's atmosphere. Just great. But as he watched Shia pilot the shuttle with confident skill, and as he caught the occasional pleased glance she threw his way, Travis had to admit that despite the terror and confusion and the complete upending of his quiet life, he felt more alive than he had in years. Maybe kissing mysterious alien statues wasn't such a bad idea after all. Travis had imagined many ways his life might end: choking on cheap noodles, getting vaporized by an angry client, maybe even dying of old age if he was really lucky. Being hunted across the galaxy by his alien girlfriend's psychotic ex-colleagues hadn't made the list. So let me get this straight, he said, watching Shia manipulate the shuttle's controls with casual expertise. You're some kind of ancient warrior princess? I'm now legally your husband according to space law, and there's a doomsday weapon involved. Without taking his eyes off the navigation screen, Shia corrected, Imperial Guardian, not princess. And it's not a doomsday weapon. It's a preservation matrix. But I guess the distinction becomes academic if employed incorrectly, right? The alcohol was wearing off, and Travis felt a headache forming behind his eyes, because that's the key detail here, he said, rubbing his temples, realizing how twisted up he was. And this preservation matrix thing. Shia's voice carried the weight of centuries of sorrow. It was meant to be temporary, a way to save our people until we could find a way to restore them. Jesus, the star crystal contains the compressed consciousness of my entire Zerithi, who lived when our empire fell, preserved in crystalline matrices at the moment of death. A whole civilization, Travis said, gazing out at the starfield that was pouring by. How many individuals are we discussing? He looked at Shia with fresh eyes and said, that's incredible and terrible, and probably the most important archaeological discovery in galactic history. Approximately 4 billion souls. The number struck Travis like a physical blow. 4 billion. People trapped in some sort of technological limbo for 1,000 years. not the final one. Others include survivors, refugees, and the offspring of people who managed to escape the collapse. Travis noticed something vulnerable in Shia's golden eyes as she finally turned to face him. But I am the last guardian, the only one who can access the crystal's power. That's a hell of a burden, Travis remarked, one I chose freely. For 1,000 years, I have carried the weight of their souls, their hopes, their need for justice. Travis felt his stomach sink. But now, she indicated between them, now I am not alone in carrying it. Wait, what do you mean? The bonding ceremony establishes a psychic connection between the guardian and the selected mate in addition to a mating contract. Shia's face was almost contrite as she said, I should have explained before. She let you kiss me, but I wanted to. Know why? You are now connected to the crystal just as I am. You humans are intriguing. Sharia chuckled, and the sound sent warmth rushing through Travis's chest. My intentions? Travis's voice cracked. Lady, I was drunk and showing around. My main intention was not to fall over. What a rich, sincere laugh that changed her entire face. Such a move would be regarded as a formal proclamation of amorous intent in Zerati culture. But, in human culture, it would be viewed as a very poor choice made when intoxicated. And yet, here we are. Sharia's smile turned predatory once more. Tell me, mate, do you regret your choice? Travis opened his mouth to answer. Yes, of course, I regret it. What kind of question was that? No, he couldn't bring himself to regret kissing the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Despite the fear, confusion, and total chaos of his life, we have a few hours until we reach the first waypoint, so maybe we might use this time to get to know each other better. Finally, he added, I'm still processing. This was a tactful response. I approve. Sharia returned to the controls. Travis winced. Please tell me you didn't base your understanding of human relationships on Hollywood. Dramas? What kind of acquainted are we talking about here? Cultural exchange, of course. You know nothing of Zerati customs, and I know little of human courtship rituals beyond what I've observed in your entertainment broadcasts. Not completely. I looked into your sexual entertainment as well. God, this talk is occurring. Travis hid his face in his hands. Yes. I thought the mating habits of your species were really creative, but I doubt the structural soundness of some of those postures. Ginger 47's voice broke Travis's embarrassment. We're being followed. If I may interrupt this interesting conversation about interspecies reproduction, her hands swept over the controls, bringing up tactical displays that showed 3 ships closing. On their position, and Sharia's manner quickly changed from jovial to deadly serious. Federation. Travis hoped for the best and asked. Sharia gravely remarked, worse, Crimson Cult Hunters. They must have been keeping an eye on messages from the Federation. Who is it now? Enthusiasts who think the Zerati Empire should be re-established. Under new rule, using the star crystal, they have spent centuries trying to find me. The shuttle jerked as the first salvo of enemy fire hit their shields, and Travis was flung against his harness, his vision blurring as the inertial dampeners tried to adapt. Sharia's fingers danced around the weapon controls. Hold on, mate. This is going to be fun. Interesting, he exclaimed. Is this what you consider interesting? I've been sleeping for 1,000 years. Everything is interesting. Besides, you wanted to know about Zerati culture. Combat is our greatest art form. Sharia threw the shuttle into a swirling dive that caused Travis's inner ear to scream in protest. She was serious. Travis marveled as Sharia transformed their stolen shuttle into a precision-destroying weapon, dancing between the enemy spacecraft and firing with unfathomable grace, exploiting every debris field and asteroid as cover and firing back with surgical accuracy. As Travis watched her hands navigate controls that should have been foreign to her, he said, "How are you doing this?" She gave him a short smile and said, "You have excellent survival instincts, mate. I can feel your human intuition, your capacity for improvisation. It's useful. Muscle memory and the psychic link we now share." One of the enemy spacecraft burst in a dazzling ball of light, and Sharia whirled their shuttle around a huge asteroid, utilizing its gravity well to slingshot into the second assault. Years of practice. You learn a few things when you earn your life in the grey markets. In an attempt to divert his attention from the likelihood that they would perish in a blazing explosion, Travis replied, "Tell me about these Crimson Cult people." Their leader, Warlord Zethrock, was once a respected general in the Imperial Guard. But power corrupted him, turned him into something monstrous, and wants to use the star crystal to bring back your people as his personal army. Sharia's voice was tight with concentration as she lined up their next shot. Religious extremists who believe the old ways must be restored. They see the star crystal as a tool of conquest rather than preservation. ZTH Rack always despised that. I was picked as guardian instead of him, but I feel his actual purpose is more personal. The second hostile ship trembled beneath their fire, its shields failing. Probably an ex-boyfriend. Hardly, though he did once offer a mating contract. I vehemently declined Sharia's savage chuckle. To what extent are we discussing this? At a ceremony, I broke both his arms and his pride in public, and he hasn't forgiven me for the shame. As the second attacker perished, another explosion lit up the view screen. Never let me get on your bad side. Please dot the bonding shields you from my aggression, but it doesn't shield you from my passion. Sharia spun them in the direction of the last enemy ship. But you couldn't if you tried, buddy. Travis's cheeks began to flush. Is innuendo appropriate at this point? Sharia's golden eyes gleamed with mischief. After all, fear and arousal share many physiological reactions, including as high heart rate, quick breathing, and dilated pupils. When is not the time to enjoy life? We could die at any time. The reason for this is that we are in grave peril. Are you sure? The last enemy ship fired with all its might before Travis could respond. The shuttle's shields overloaded, lights flickering and sparks streaming from control panels. It was the first time Travis had heard Sharia use human vulgarity. "Shit," she mumbled. "They were fortunate. How lucky. So what now? We do what Zarati do best." Shia's smile was all fangs and war delight. "We board their ship and seize it." Travis saw the enemy spacecraft close in. For the kill, a strange serenity crept over him. We're dead in space. However, Shia was already on the move, opening the shuttle's emergency airlock. She made a gesture, and her clothes changed into what appeared to be sleek, lethal, full combat armor. "The vacuum won't kill me immediately," she said, "checking weapons that had just materialized, and the psychic link will keep you alive long enough to reach their ship." "This is insane. You're crazy. I'm definitely going to die. Probably. But what a story it will make." Shia grabbed Trevi around the waist and activated the airlock. "Try not to scream. It ruins the intimidation factor." The next few minutes were a blur of vacuum, violence, and terror. Shia carried Travis through space like he weighed nothing, her armor protecting them both from the worst of the cold and radiation, They crashed through the enemy ship's hull with explosive force, landing in what looked like a cargo bay full of very surprised cultists. Travis had thought Shia was impressive, fighting Federation security forces. That was nothing compared to watching her in zero-G combat against opponents who actually knew what they were doing. She moved like liquid death, her armor adapting to provide thrust and protection while her weapons carved through enemy ranks. But what impressed Travis most was how she fought around him, always keeping him safe while never restricting her own movement. "Behind you," Travis shouted, spotting a cultist trying to flank her. Shia spun and fired without looking, her shot taking the enemy center mass. "Good eyes, mate. You're gaining knowledge. That's normal. I'm mainly just trying not to throw." Up, she took Travis's hand and dragged him into what appeared to be a control room, saying, "But you're adapting quickly. Combat sickness affects many species. Your tactical recommendations are quite helpful. I'm using the link to make tactical recommendations." "It's fascinating," Shia said, closing the door behind them and starting to work on the ship's controls. "Your subconscious is providing battlefield analysis. Humans are incredibly adaptive," she said, as Travis surveyed the control room, trying to take it all in. "So I'm really assisting with this madness. Much more than useful." Shia's hands flew over alien controls, and Travis felt the ship's engines come online. "I'm starting to understand why the bonding chose you. The bonding chose me. You saved my life twice in that fight. Once by spotting the flanking maneuver, and once by suggesting I use the gravity plating as a weapon. It needed someone flexible, someone who could think outside the box. I believed I had chosen to kiss you. The crystal led your actions, just as it guided mine in choosing that particular shape while I was imprisoned." Shia's gaze became contemplative, the instincts of a warrior in the head of a scholar. "I am not a scholar. I am a junk dealer with a degree that is worthless. You are a xenoarchaeologist who recognizes the worth of items that have been forgotten." "There's a difference," Shia said, completing her task and turning to face him. "Share your knowledge of the Zarati extinction with me, mate." Travis searched his memory, trying to recall university lectures from another lifetime. Not much. According to the chronicles, internal strife and outside forces caused your empire to fall. The majority of your worlds were destroyed or abandoned. Histories are false. Shia's voice held generations of suffering. Those who prioritized power over preservation betrayed us from within. The crystal was supposed to save us, but it ended up becoming our tomb. And now this extract wants to use it to regain control of your people. He intends to utilize it to assemble an army of resurrected people who will submit to his commands. Then we stop him, he said plainly, and Shia's eyes widened. He would turn my people into slaves, puppets dancing to his ambitions. Travis experienced a wave of rage that startled him with its intensity. The thought of someone corrupting the last hope of an entire civilization. Then we stop him, he said simply. These are people you don't even know. There was a change in Shia's expression, a warmth that had not been there before. I know you, and I know what it's like to lose everything that matters. Travis steadily met her gaze. Besides, 4 billion people deserve better than to be someone's puppet army. You continue to surprise me, Travis McCoy. Full of surprises, he gestured around the captured ship. Speaking of which, where exactly are we going? The home system of Xerthi Shia started planning their strategy, saying, but first, we need to gather allies. The crystal is hidden in the ruins of the Imperial Palace, protected by automated defenses that only a guardian can bypass. Others, survivors who recall the true values of the Empire, will support us even if they disagree with Sethrak's vision. Some will, others, ... Shia's smile turned predatory. Others will need convincing. The next several hours passed in a blur of hyperspace jumps and near-constant combat. It seemed like every system they visited had Crimson Cult forces waiting for them. But Shia was a master tactician, and Travis found himself adapting to their strange partnership with surprising ease. She was right about the psychic link. He could feel her thoughts at the edge of his consciousness, her tactical instincts blending with his human unpredictability to create something neither of them could achieve alone. In return, she seemed to draw strength from his irreverent humor and stubborn optimism. "You know," Travis said as they outran yet another group of cult hunters, "for a 1,000-year-old warrior princess, you're pretty good company." "Imperial Guardian," Shia corrected automatically. "And you're not entirely terrible yourself for a primitive human." "Thanks, I think." They were interrupted by Ginger 47's voice from the communication system. "I hate... I don't want to ruin this sweet moment, but we're getting close to the rendezvous locations. And I can see that there are already several spacecraft in the system." Shariah's face became strained. "Some of the ships are friendly, while others are not." Travis's gut dropped as he gazed at the tactical display. There were ships of all kinds in the area surrounding their destination. Elegant Zerati cruisers, dilapidated pirate ships, and the characteristic red hulls of cult ships. He said, "Looks like the gang's all here." Shariah's hands went to the weapon controls, and she said, "Indeed." Travis couldn't help but wonder what he'd gotten himself into as they plummeted out of hyperspace into the frantic fleet engagement. "Welcome to Zarati politics, mate. Try not to get killed in the first 5 minutes. No promises." Despite the danger, he couldn't help but smile as he saw Shariah plan their defense with merciless efficiency, and how her eyes glowed with the excitement of combat. Perhaps the worst thing a guy could experience was not being bound to a warrior goddess. That was before the shooting began, of course. Zerith Prime's surroundings resembled a three-dimensional chess game played by inebriated gods, with their weapon exchanges illuminating the emptiness like lethal fireworks. Ships of every possible design turned and plunged through the wreckage of what had once been the galaxy's most potent fleet. Travis muttered, "Okay," as he watched a pirate corvette blow up against a Zarati dreadnought's shields. Maybe now would be a good time to explain the plan. "The plan is simple," Shariah said, navigating the controls through the turmoil with her hands dancing across them. "We gather the surviving loyalists, convince them to follow me, and use their combined strength to reach the crystal before Zethrak can claim it. And the complicated part, the rest, 2 ships flying Zarati colors, chased after a Crimson Cult fighter that screamed past their viewport." Travis instinctively ducked as weapons fire illuminated the area around them. Most of these people have been fighting each other for centuries. They won't trust easily. Great. So we're trying to unite a bunch of paranoid warriors who've been at each other's throats for longer than human civilization has existed. This should go well. Smile was as crisp as a knife. "Your optimism is refreshing, mate," she said. A fresh voice, speaking in what Travis thought was ancient Zarati, crackled across the communication system. "But yes, essentially, that's the plan." As Shariah listened, her face grew serious. Travis questioned, "What are they saying?" There were hints of danger in Shariah's voice as she said, "Admiral Corey wants to know why I'm traveling with a human. He's questioning my judgment." Travis was interrupted when their spacecraft trembled under gunfire. Perhaps I should remind him of the consequences of insulting my bonded mate. Or maybe we could try diplomacy first. Novel concept, I know. But I said, he saw through the window a huge Zerati battleship, its gun ports glimmering with charged electricity, advancing to intercept them. Shariah mumbled, "Diplomacy it is," and opened a channel. Her voice had the distinct tone of someone issuing instructions to subordinates, and she spoke quickly in Zerati. The reaction was equally vehement. Travis was able to identify the sound of an argument without having to know the words. Shariah clarified. "He's refusing to stand down." Shariah's hands moved to the weapon controls. "He says I've been corrupted by human influence and should submit to purification. Purification, death, usually. Sometimes just imprisonment and re-education." The battleship fired with all of its might. Corey always was a traditionalist. "Wait, maybe we can." Travis's inner ear screamed as Shariah threw their hijacked ship into a whirling dive. But even her talent as a pilot wasn't enough to totally escape the weaponry of the enormous vessel. Warning lights flooded the cockpit as their shields flared and faded. "Right," Shariah murmured grimly, satisfied. Diplomacy. What transpired was a masterclass in applied violence rather than a war. Shariah used the velocity and structural integrity of their crippled ship as ammo, transforming it into a weapon. She smashed them through the fighter screen of the battleship into the docking port and stopped them in what appeared to be the main hangar of the ship. Shariah caught Travis and dragged him toward the airlock while he was still attempting to determine which way was up. She said, "Time to meet the neighbors," with a smile. All of the Zerati soldiers in the hangar were furious and appeared to have strong feelings about Shariah's choice of partners. When Travis first saw her people, he saw why they had been such a powerful force in the galaxy. They all appeared to be able to murder him with their bare hands and were tall and athletic. All of them moved with the fluid grace of a natural predator, and their skin tones ranged from deep purple to pale lavender. Their weapons appeared to be able to pierce tiny moons, and their armor appeared to change and flow like living metal. One of them yelled, "Shariah of the House of Starfire," with a voice full of authority. "You stand accused of contamination and betrayal of the pure blood." "Admiral Korth," Shariah said, her voice as authoritative as ever. Even though her confidence was likely to result in their deaths, Travis had to respect it. "You stand accused of being an insufferable ass. I see neither of us has changed." With her head held high and her palm nonchalantly resting on her weapon, she commanded attention from the angry crowd as if she owned the room. "You bring a human here to the sacred gathering of the bloodlines," Korth said. "You dishonor us all. With your presence," Shariah's voice travels like a razor across the hangar. "I bring my bonded mate, chosen by the crystal itself," she said. "Perhaps you should ask yourself why the ancient powers would choose a human when so many blooded Zerati were available." That generated quite a stir. Travis saw enough individual responses in the crowd to realize that this was clearly a delicate subject. The crystal made no decision. The silence that followed was deafening. Every eye in the hangar was on Travis, and he suddenly realized what it was like for a mouse to be surrounded by cats. Korth spat, "You were corrupted by human weakness, seduced by their primitive emotions." In fact, Travis surprised himself by speaking up and saying, "I was the one who was seduced. Your guardian here is pretty damn impressive." In a standard galactic accent, someone said, "Did the human just speak?" "I think it tried to communicate," someone other said. Overcoming his dread, Travis walked up and said, "Okay, that's enough." I get that you don't like humans, but I'm standing right here. If you want to insult me, at least do it to my face. Continued silence. Then Admiral Core made a noise like grinding metal as he started to laugh. I'll give it spirit, he said, drawing a weapon that appeared capable of slicing through tank armor. But spirit alone doesn't make a worthy mate for a guardian. Perhaps we should test its worthiness in combat. No, Sharia said, her voice piercing the tension like a whip. Through their psychic connection, Travis sensed Sharia's annoyance, and her wish to use violence to resolve their confrontation. You will not touch him. Then you admit he's weak, that he needs your protection. However, he also sensed a longer game, a deeper scheme. Travis continued, Tell me something, Admiral, his voice echoing round the hangar. Core's eyebrows tightened as he asked, How long have you been fighting this war? What war? This one. The one where you're all shooting at each other instead of working together. The one where your people are scattered across the galaxy, fighting over scraps while your real enemies gather strength. Travis looked around the hangar. How's that working out for you? You know nothing of our struggles, human. I know that while you've been arguing over bloodline purity, someone else has been gathering power. Someone who wants to use your people's souls as weapons. Travis continued to advance. He sensed that the audience's attention was changing from one of animosity to one of wonder. I know that Sharia has been carrying the weight of 4 billion dead for 1,000 years, and instead of helping her, you're questioning her judgment. I know that I'm a human junk dealer who accidentally woke up the most important person in your civilization. And instead of being grateful, you want to kill me for not being purple enough. Travis raised his voice. But mostly, I know that if you don't stop fighting each other and start working together, you're all going to end up dead, and your people are going to stay dead. The stillness lasted for a long time. Admiral Core then put his weapon away. He turned to face Sharia and said, You have human courage and maybe wisdom. Sharia added, The crystal chose well, with pride in her voice. The crystal's choices have always been mysterious. Perhaps this is another mystery we must accept. We'll see, Korith said, pointing to the hangar's exit. Travis McCoy may be human, but he has the heart of a warrior and the soul of a protector. Come, the others will want to meet this human who speaks of unity while bonded to our greatest guardian. Travis was surrounded by inquisitive Zerathi soldiers as they made their way through the battleship's hallways. They questioned him about human culture, human capacities, and human intentions with the same fervor as scientists studying a new species. Why did you choose to bond with Sharia? Someone said. They looked impressed by it. I didn't choose anything. I was drunk and showing off. You were intoxicated when you made the most important decision of your life. Pretty much, yeah. Sharia walked next to him, her presence comforting and warm through their psychic link. But Travis could sense tension in her, a building storm of emotion that spoke of difficult choices ahead. He heard bits of conversation in Zerathi that he was fairly certain translated to variations of only a human would accidentally start a bonding ritual, and perhaps their unpredictability is their strength. He said, What aren't you telling me? Many things, but specifically ... You mean the nature of the trials ahead. Trials to reach the crystal. We must pass through the ruins of the Imperial Palace. The automated defenses recognize only those who prove their worthiness through combat, sacrifice, and wisdom. Sharia's tone was neutral. They were designed to test both guardian and mate, and if we fail, death usually quite unpleasant. Of course, Travis replied with a temple rub. because nothing about this can be simple. They entered a large conference room filled with delegates from numerous Sarathi factions. Tension and barely restrained violence permeated the air. These were the people who had persevered through 1,000 years of exile and had not given up hope. However, Travis became aware that hope was a brittle concept as he surveyed the gathering. These people were worn down by centuries of grief and conflict. They needed a common cause, something to rally around, a guardian who could guide them. Home was necessary. Sharia said, "Brothers and sisters of the blood," her voice resonating clearly throughout the room. From the back of the room, a scarred warrior exclaimed pretty words. "I stand before you, not as a relic of the past, but as a harbinger of the future. The time has come to reclaim our birthright." Saria's smile was all fangs as she asked, "But what of the Crimson Cult? What of Exthrax's army? What of them?" Saria pointed to Travis and said, "Let them come. We have something they lack. And what is that? Unity, purpose, and the blessing of the star crystal itself." Travis knew that everyone in the room was staring at him, and he made an effort to keep his eyes on him. "My mate may be human, but he carries within him the spark of something our people have forgotten. The ability to see beyond the boundaries of tradition and find new solutions to old problems." These people were counting on him to be something exceptional, something deserving of their renowned protector, as evidenced by his anxiousness. He was fairly certain that he would let them down. "I'm not a warrior," he finally declared. He paused and looked around the room before saying, "I'm not a leader. I'm just a guy who made a really bad decision in a bar. But I've learned something in the last few hours. Sometimes the worst decisions lead to the best outcomes." Admiral Korath gave the order, "1,000 years ago, your people faced extinction. Instead of accepting defeat, they chose to preserve themselves in the crystal, waiting for the right moment to return. That was a crazy decision, putting your entire civilization's future in the hands of technology that might not work, trusting that someone would eventually find a way to bring you back." Now that he had their attention, Travis could tell, but it worked. "You're here, your people are preserved, waiting for resurrection, all because someone made a crazy decision when faced with impossible odds. And your point? My point is that maybe crazy decisions are what got your people this far. Maybe what you need now isn't someone who will make the safe choice, but someone who will make the necessary one." Travis glanced directly at Sharia. "Even if it costs everything." Debate erupted in the conference room. While some fighters agreed with Travis's assertions, others cautioned. Despite everything, Travis saw the glimmer of hope, which was unexpected. These were folks who wished to believe. They desired to return home. "Enough," cried Shia, her voice piercing the dispute. "We have wasted enough time in debate. Zetha's forces grow stronger with each passing hour. If we're going to act, we must act now." Korath said, "What do you propose?" Shaya's eyes glowed with resolve as she said, "We strike directly at the crystal chamber fast, hard, and with everything we have. No more hiding, no more running. We end this war one way or another." The ensuing discussion was intense yet short. Ultimately, the survivors made the decision to go into battle with their guardian, even if it meant being destroyed. They had had enough of hiding, running, and seeing their people stuck in crystalline death. Travis and Shia were alone in the conference room, while the leaders of the other factions scattered to get their soldiers ready. So, he asked in an attempt to lighten the situation, "How do you think that went?" "Better than expected. You impressed them." Travis gazed out the viewport of the chamber at the assembling fleet and said, I was mostly just trying not to throw up. Are we really going to do this? Storm some ancient fortress with whatever ships we can scrape together? Yes, Shia said, positioning herself next to him. And we're probably going to die in the attempt. Well, that's comforting, returned Travis. Shia turned to look at him, her face grave. There's something else you need to know about the crystal, about what we're really attempting. More bad news. Shia's voice was hardly audible above a whisper as she said, the restoration process requires a sacrifice. The consciousness matrices can only be activated by someone willingly giving their life force to power the awakening. That's why guardians are always bonded. The mate provides the energy needed to restore the preserved souls. The blood drained from Travis's face. You're saying I have to die to bring your people back. I'm saying the ritual requires it. But began Travis. Shia extended her arm and grasped his hand. I won't let it happen. I'd rather let my people stay dead than sacrifice you. Shia's palm tightened around his. And if that's not good enough, if the only way to save 4 billion people is for me to power up your magic crystal, Shia asked, then we find another way. What if there isn't another way? Shia remained silent for a while. The weight of millennia was in her voice when she finally spoke. Then we'll face that choice when it comes to it together. In an attempt to comprehend what she had told him, Travis nodded. The odd thing was that he was beginning to believe that it may be acceptable that he would likely die to save a civilization that he had never heard of the day before. Finally, he added, well, at least it will make a great story. Shia laughed, with warmth and sincerity. Indeed it will, my brave human. Indeed it will. The gathered armada started to move outside the viewport, with scores of spacecraft lining up in attack formation. They were on their way to an old stronghold that might have the secret of resurrection, or the promise of ultimate death, the remains of the Zerati homeworld. Travis tried not to think about the idea that he was likely living out his final hours while he watched the sky. Instead, he concentrated on Shia, the lady by his side, beautiful, intelligent, and deadly, who had somehow come to be the most significant thing in his universe, even though kissing enigmatic alien statues was likely to result in his death. Perhaps it wasn't such a horrible idea after all. Zerati Prime's approach appeared to be a god's cemetery. Massive ship hulks, their mangled metal carcasses bearing witness to the last conflict of a defeated empire, drifted in endless orbit around the lifeless world. The planet itself was a mausoleum, with oceans boiling away and continents turned to glass, leaving behind only the skeletal remnants of the greatest civilization in the galaxy. Travis whispered, cheerful place, as he watched the ruins move past the glass. Really sets the mood for a suicide mission. With trained accuracy, Shia's hands slid across the controls, steering their ship through the debris field toward an incomprehensible structure. The faceted walls of the crystal chamber reflected starlight in patterns that were painful to look at directly, and it hung in space like a crystalline flower. The Imperial Palace, she murmured in a memory-heavy voice. Built to be beautiful even in death. It's incredible, Travis said, his voice bursting with wonder. How is it even still intact after all this time? Uriah's countenance darkened, indicating that Sethrak had already started the awakening process. The crystal preserves what it protects. The chamber exists partially outside normal space-time, sustained by the life force of those within. Travis felt her pain like a physical blow through the telepathic link. She was being torn apart by whatever was going on inside that crystal castle. Shia, he said, touching her hand with his hand, She turned to face him, and Travis noticed something in her golden eyes that made his stomach knot. "We'll stop him. Will we?" she asked. "Travis, there's something I need to tell you about the bonding, about why the crystal chose you. More revelations. Great, hit me." The mate bond isn't just romantic or spiritual. It's functional. The Guardian needs someone whose life force is compatible with the crystal's energy matrix. Shia's tone was controlled. Travis experienced the words as if they were a physical blow. Someone whose death can power the resurrection of billions. "You're saying I was chosen specifically to die?" "I'm saying the crystal recognized something in you that would make your sacrifice meaningful. Your adaptability, your willingness to protect others, your capacity for love." Shia's eyes sparkled with tears. "Yes," the word escaped as hardily. "More than a whisper. I didn't know, not at first. But as we've gotten closer, as I've come to care for you, you've been training me to be a willing sacrifice." As he tried to comprehend what she had told him, Travis reclined in his chair. Her tests, her challenges, and the way she had encouraged him to be bolder, stronger, and more determined all made sense now. Her goal had been to prepare him for a valiant death, not for survival. "How long have you known?" "Since the first combat, when I felt your mind through the link and saw your willingness to risk yourself for strangers." Shia's voice cracked. "You have the most beautiful soul, Travis McCoy, pure and bright and utterly selfless. The crystal couldn't have chosen better. And you, what do you think about the crystal's choice?" Shia remained silent for a while. She had a fiercely emotional voice when she spoke. Despite everything, Travis couldn't help but smile. "I think the crystal can go to hell. I won't sacrifice you, Travis. Not for my people, not for anyone." Travis leaned over and kissed her forehead. "You'd let 4 billion souls stay trapped in crystal just to keep me alive?" "Yes, without hesitation. Yes, I would." "Well, that's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. But we both know you won't do that when the time comes, Travis, because you're a guardian. Because those people are depending on you, because it's the right thing to do." He placed his hands on her face. Shia's calmness eventually broke as she said, "And because I won't let you carry that guilt for the rest of your life." With frantic power, she drew him into her embrace. "Hey," Travis said, stroking her silver hair and admiring its silky smoothness. "I can't lose you, not now. Not when I finally found something worth living for." "Who says you're losing me?" "Maybe there's another way. The rituals are ancient, Travis, written in the fundamental laws of reality itself. There is no other way." "Says who?" "Some dusty old priest who died 1,000 years ago." Travis stepped back to look at her. When has anyone ever tried asking the crystal what it wants instead of just assuming? "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if we don't try to control this thing? What if we just talk to it, see what 4 billion souls actually want to do with their second chance?" Shia was staring at him. Travis pointed to the dead planet under them and said, "That's not how the rituals work. Screw the rituals. They didn't work the first time, did they? Maybe it's time to try something new." Shia was about to reply when the ship started to sound alarms. Dozens of approaching ships illuminated the tactical display, perfectly synchronized Crimson Cult spacecraft, stepping out of hyperspace. Shia growled, "Estrek," as her hands shot to the controls of the weapon. As the enemy ships swarmed around the crystal chamber, Travis thought, he's brought his entire fleet. He felt a shiver go through his body. "How many people is that?" Shia said, opening a channel to the loyalist fleet. "Too many. We can't fight them all." She started to say, All ships. This is Guardian Shia. Prepare for, but was interrupted when the lead cult ship began firing on the room. However, the weapons appeared to give the crystalline structure energy rather than destroy it. The faceted walls of the room glowed with inner fire as it surged brighter. He's speeding up the awakening process. Exhaled Shia, using weapons. Fire to power the crystal. Can he do that? Not without a guardian to control the process. But if he captures me, Shia's face widened. We have to get inside now. The next 15 minutes were the scariest Travis has ever experienced. Using every space combat tactic to evade the cult fleet's attempts to intercept them. Shia navigated their ship through a tangle of wreckage and gunfire. Despite their heroic efforts, the loyalist ships were outnumbered 3-1. There, Shia said, indicating a docking station on the lower floors of the chamber. Emergency access. We can get inside through their ship. Cult fighters surrounded them, causing the ship to tremble. Travis could see their shields deteriorating under the focused attack, but Shia fired back with surgical accuracy. His words, "We're not going to make it. We are," Shia said with unwavering conviction. She hurled their ship into a spiraling dive, causing Travis's vision to become blank. "Hold on," she said. By the time his vision returned, they were in the docking bay of the crystal chamber, their hulls smoldering from the impact of weapons. How did we? Shia was already on the move, efficiently inspecting weapons and equipment. After following her out of the spacecraft, Travis had his first glimpse of the chambers inside. Estrak will have felt my presence the moment we entered. He knows we're here. It felt like entering a living treasure trove. He could hear what may have been singing thousands of harmonized voices just on the brink of perception, and the walls pulsed with gentle light. The souls, Shia clarified after observing his face. They're dreaming, all of them, locked in, ... Double quotes evoked shared memories of past and potential futures. For 1,000 years, Jesus, 4 billion individuals have had the same dream. Dreams that are connected, yet not the same. They share hopes and anxieties and relive each other's memories. Sharia spoke in a respectful tone. It is both the most awful and the most beautiful thing in the world. They followed paths that were more in memory than in actual space, passing through hallways that appeared to change and flow around them. The weight of millennia, the combined sorrow and hope of a whole civilization, was bearing down on Travis. The voice, Guardian, reverberated with such authority that the walls themselves began to ring. With scores of cult fighters on either side, Estrak emerged at the far end of the hallway. His armor was wreathed in crimson energy that was painful to look at directly, and he was tall, even by Zerati standards. With the same booming authority in her own voice, Warlord Sharia answered. Zth. Rak looked at Travis with a look of disdain. Still playing dress-up, I see. Still consorting with lesser beings. You have fallen far, Sharia, to bond with a human. It's disgusting. Travis stepped closer, saying, funny, even though Strak appeared capable of crushing him with a single hand. I was thinking the same thing about your fashion choices. What is that, early Sith Lord? Very retro. Estrak held up a hand as the cult warriors readied their swords. The human has spirit. Pity it won't save him from what's coming. What do you want, Estrak? Asserted Sharia. Estrak pointed to the center of the chamber, where Travis could see a pulsing glow that appeared to include entire star systems, and said, what I've always wanted, the restoration of our people under proper leadership. The crystal is nearly ready. All it needs is the guardian's touch and the mate's sacrifice. And if I refuse, then your precious human dies anyway, and I use the refugees I've captured to power the awakening. Ethrak's wicked grin. At least this way, his death has meaning. Through their connection, Travis sensed Shariah's anger and her wish to use violence to put an end to this. However, he could also feel her underlying anxiety that Ethrak might be correct, and that this was her people's only chance to be saved. Travis stated, "There's a third option." Zarati both turned to look at him. "What if nobody controls the crystal? What if we just ask the people inside what they want to do?" Ethrak let out a laugh that sounded like shattered glass. The human thinks he understands powers beyond his comprehension. How amusing. Maybe I don't understand the power, Travis acknowledged, but I understand choice, and it seems to me that 4 billion people should get to decide their own fate. They are beyond choice, beyond individual will. They exist now only as part of the greater whole, Seth said with a fervent sense of assurance. I will guide that whole to its proper destiny. Their destiny, Shariah uttered in a whisper. Or yours. What difference does it make? I am the strongest, the most worthy to lead. Under my guidance, the Zarati will reclaim their place as the galaxy's dominant power. Ethrak's face darkened as he asked, and if they don't want to be a galactic power, if they want something else entirely, enough talk. You will perform the ritual, Guardian, or I will kill your humans, slowly, and use his pain to power the crystal myself. It was like witnessing God's fight during the ensuing conflict. The foundations of the hall shook as Shariah and Ethrak engaged in combat with weapons that cut reality itself. The loyalist forces that had gotten past the station's defenses were confronted by cult warriors. In the midst of a conflict, Travis was attempting to survive as the two most lethal creatures he had ever encountered attempted to murder one another. Nevertheless, he never lost sight of his objective, the center of the crystal room, where 4 billion souls awaited their release. Ginger, he commanded his droid, who, in spite of the confusion, was still recording everything. Can you hack into the chamber's communication system? Theoretically, yes, but why would you? Travis forced his way through the chaos, employing all the nasty tricks he had acquired from living on the fringes of the galaxy for his entire life. Just do it, he exclaimed. He was resourceful, unpredictable, and adamant about not letting either of them make this decision for 4 billion people. Even if he wasn't a fighter like Shariah or Zeth. He arrived at the crystal as the struggle between Ethrak and Shariah was coming to a head. Travis's eyes watered as the two Zarati engaged in single combat, their weapons producing light displays. He could tell, however, that Shariah was losing. She had been fighting for hours, while Ethrak was fresh. Now, Ginger, exclaimed Travis, by connecting with the chamber's antiquated electronics. The droid's systems created a communication route that got around all security procedures and ceremonial requirements. Travis was suddenly linked to 4 billion minds, all of whom were having the same dream, rather than a computer. The voice, which was made up of millions of distinct thoughts speaking in unison, came from everywhere and nowhere and asked, "Who dares disturb our rest?" "Someone who thinks you should get to choose what happens next," Travis replied. "Choose. We are beyond choice. We are preservation, memory, the eternal moment before ending. But you don't have to be. You could come back, live again, rebuild your civilization. Under whose guidance? The warlord who would make us instruments of conquest. The guardian who would sacrifice love for duty." Through their bond, Travis sensed Shariah's shock. Everything was known to the crystal awareness, including their disagreement, feelings, and communication. When Travis said, "Under your own guidance, it's your civilization, your choice to make. And what would you have us choose, little human? What wisdom do you offer that our greatest minds have not already considered?" Travis surveyed the chamber, taking in the ongoing conflict between Shariah and Exthrock, as well as the loyalists and cultists vying for control of 4 billion souls, and said, "I don't have wisdom. I just have a different perspective. Maybe the question isn't whether you should come back, but what you want to become. Explain your old empire is gone. The galaxy has moved on, but that doesn't mean you have to rebuild what was. You could become something new, something the galaxy needs now." Travis paused, feeling the weight of 4 billion minds focused on his words. You could become teachers, guides, protectors of younger species. Share your knowledge without dominating. Help without controlling. The chamber fell silent. Even ZTHRII and Shariah stopped fighting, sensing that something fundamental was changing. "You suggest we abandon physical form entirely and become pure consciousness, dispersed among the stars. I'm suggesting you become what you choose to become. If that's physical beings rebuilding your empire, fine. If it's energy beings helping guide the galaxy's evolution, also fine. The point is, it's your choice, and our guardian, our ancient protector, who has carried our burden for so long." Travis looked at Shariah, seeing the hope and fear warring in her golden eyes. "She gets to choose too. Her duty to you is done. You're awake. You're free to choose your own path. What she does next is up to her." The silence stretched for an eternity. Then gradually, Travis began to feel something like laughter from the crystal consciousness. "You are wise, little human. Wise in the way children are wise, seeing truths that adults have forgotten." The voice carried warmth, now affection. "We choose freedom, not the freedom to conquer or dominate, but the freedom to grow, to learn, to become something new." The crystal began to pulse with blinding light, but instead of the harsh energy ZTHRI had been trying to harness, this was warm, welcoming, alive. "We go now to join the greater conversation, to add our voices to the symphony of consciousness that spans the galaxy. Some of us will remain to rebuild in flesh, but most will become something beyond flesh, beyond the boundaries of individual existence." Strax screamed in rage as his plans crumbled around him. He raised his weapon, aiming at Travis with lethal intent. But Shariah was faster, her blade taking him through the heart before he could fire. "Goodbye, old friend," she said softly as Exthrock collapsed. "I hope you find peace in death that you never found in life." Around them, the chamber began to change. The walls became transparent, revealing the starfield beyond, and streaming out from the crystal came thousands of points of light, souls choosing their new existence. Some returning to physical form, others dispersing into pure energy. "It's beautiful," Travis breathed, watching the light show paint patterns across the cosmos. "Yes," Shariah agreed, taking his hand. "It is." "Guardian," the crystal consciousness spoke one last time. "Your service is complete. You are free to choose your own path." Shariah squeezed Travis's hand. "I choose him. I choose love over duty, hope over honor, the future over the past. Then be happy, both of you, and know that in choosing each other, you have given our people the greatest gift of all, the chance to choose for themselves." The light faded, leaving Travis and Shariah alone in the chamber with Ginger 47 and the surviving loyalists around them. The station began to change, becoming something new. Part memorial, part beacon, part gateway for the consciousness that now flowed freely through the galaxy. So, Travis said, as they watched the last of the light streams disappear into space, "What do we do now?" Shariah smiled, and Travis felt his heart skip a beat. "Now, my dear human, we figure out how to build a life together. I hear Earth has excellent museums. Perhaps I could be persuaded to share some authentic Zarati artifacts with human scholars in exchange for what? Cooking lessons. Your species' ability to make food taste good is legendary." Shariah's smile turned mischievous. Among other legendary abilities, Travis felt heat flood his cheeks. "We're really going to do this. Build a life together. If you're willing to put up with a 1,000-year-old alien warrior with abandonment issues and a tendency toward violence. If you're willing to put up with a 32-year-old human with commitment issues and a tendency toward bad decisions. I think your bad decisions are what I like most about you." Shariah pulled him close, her lips finding his in a kiss that tasted like starlight and promises. "Besides, what's the worst that could happen?" 6 months later, Travis stood in his shop, examining a small crystalline figure that had arrived in the morning shipment from the Century Antiquities Exchange. It was beautiful work, delicate features carved with obvious skill and what looked like script running around the base. "Interesting piece," Ginger, 47, observed from his charging station. "Though I should note that your last encounter with mysterious alien statuary nearly got you killed." "Nearly got me the adventure of a lifetime," Travis corrected, running his fingers over the carved symbols. "Besides, what are the odds of it happening twice? Given your track record, disturbingly high." The shop's door chimed, and Shariah entered, carrying takeout bags from the Thai place down the street. She'd adapted to human customs with remarkable speed, though she still insisted on carrying enough weaponry to outfit a small army. "How was the museum?" Travis asked, accepting his usual order of pad thai. "Educational. The curator was very interested in my first-hand accounts of Imperial Zarati art." Shariah paused, noticing what he was examining. "Travis, please tell me you're not considering kissing another alien statue." The thought had crossed my mind. "Don't even think about it, mate. One awakened alien girlfriend is quite enough." Travis grinned and carefully placed the artifact back on its shelf. "Yeah, but imagine the story we could tell." Shariah's laugh filled the shop, warm and genuine and utterly human despite her alien heritage. "I love you, Travis McCoy, but if you wake up another 1,000-year-old warrior, I'm feeding you to her myself." "Fair enough." Travis pulled her into his arms, marveling once again at how perfectly she fit against him. "So, how's the memoir coming along?" Ginger, who has already received 3 publication offers, finished the first draft yesterday and is titled "How I Survived Dating a 1,000-Year Alien Warrior, A Human's Guide to Intercultural Romance." Shariah's eyes gleamed with mischief. "You know, 6 months ago I was a failed antiquities dealer, drowning my sorrows in cheap liquor. And now I'm dating a legendary warrior princess and we're writing best-selling memoirs." Of course he has. Travis surveyed his shop, which was now brimming with real artifacts and authentic histories rather than tourist trinkets. "Imperial Guardian," Shariah instinctively corrected, "and Travis, you were never a failure. You simply hadn't discovered your calling yet." "And why am I here?" "To be mine." She gave him a gentle kiss, her lips warm against his. "And I'm yours for as long as you'll have me. Forever might not be long enough. Then we'll figure out how to make it longer." There was the usual mix of humans, and aliens in the city outside their shop window, going about their lives, chasing their dreams, making their own bad choices, and dealing with the fallout. But inside, Travis McCoy and Shariah of the House of Starfire had discovered something more valuable than any archaeological treasure. They had discovered each other.